Hey guys, it's Vol here. We're going to talk about Strikezone Wotan, which just finished, and there's just been a video out which I've just finished watching about the results of the campaign. What happened in this campaign is that it ran for a number of different weeks, went through a few different phases. I dropped out after the first phase because I wasn't liking the campaign that much, but it carried on anyway. And in this video, I want to start by saying that I personally didn't like the campaign. I have some things to criticize. I'm going to sort of get those off my chest initially. So I'm going to talk over my reasons why I didn't think the campaign was very good. Then I will spend a bit of time talking about some of my loose sort of imaginary ideas about things that could be done in a different campaign. Maybe not a direct improvement of this campaign, but some things that could replace it. And then thirdly, I'll cover off just a few things that I thought were positive about the campaign, just to sort of put that out there, and then we're done. Um, just bear in mind, guys, that there will be some negative stuff about the campaign in this video, as I've said. If you really loved the campaign, if all you remember from this video is this one point, I just want to say that just because I don't like the campaign and you did like it doesn't mean that I want to attack you in particular. I'm not sort of wanting to denigrate people who really invested in the campaign and got a lot out of it and thought it went really well from them. I wouldn't want to take away anything from those good experiences, and just because you fall on a different side of the position than me in terms of the analysis of it and the theory of it doesn't mean that I have anything against people in particular, or want to sort of badmouth them. But I do want to criticize this campaign because, to me, a lot of it really sucked. Uh, we had Flame Strike the previous year, and some people are saying that this Strikezone Wotan was an improvement from Flame Strike, and in some aspects it was, in some aspects it wasn't, and we'll cover off more of that soon. But for those of you who are just watching this video out of the blue and aren't really too sure what this is all about, Strikezone Wotan, of course, is the campaign for Infinity done by Corvus Belli and, of course, Beasts of War, the people who operate the website and actually get the campaign data together and process it. So what you do is you log into the website, create an account for yourself, and you start uploading battle reports. And you can upload things about the bat rep, like the content of it, the write-up, the photos, a video, people you played against, and that gets rated, and the results of your bat reps go towards the campaign on this map, and there are stats recorded in pie charts which show how well factions are doing in particular parts. So you might upload your battle report as a victory or a loss to a particular theater of war, and it might be one of these spaceships here, because Strikezone Wotan happens in space. So that is the overview of it. There were three phases. After a couple of weeks or whatever it was, the first phase ended, and we saw that a lot of people stopped playing. There was a massive, giant activity drop, as someone on the forums put it. I heard somewhere that somebody said, oh, well, it's because of 40k. The new edition for Warhammer 40,000 came out, and a lot of people wanted to play that instead. I don't really buy that. I would admit that that's the explanation for some people going, but I think the main reason why a lot of people get into the campaign, make an account, there's a bit of hype about it for the first couple of weeks, maybe they'll submit a bat rep or two, and then, it's too difficult. They sort of go and do other things and they don't bother continuing with it. And I think there's a pretty simple explanation about that. When you start to get into the campaign and the novelty of it wears off a bit, it's very apparent that bat reps are hard work. It takes quite a while to go through the interface there and upload the photos, wait for the system to accept them, write the content, which is time consuming if you're typing up original content. And this is after playing a game which may have been quite an exhausting game. And then have that submitted onto a feed of bat reps which scrolls through pretty quickly. You wait 6 to 12 hours and your bat rep is lost amongst everybody else's bat reps, so the recognition that you get will be very low, and the effect that your individual game has on the overall map with hundreds of people playing is negligible. The only time that you're really having a big impact is if you're just posting as many bat reps as you can, and you're just really just squashing one theater with a lot of bat reps. So that is why I think a lot of people quit this campaign. It was the feeling of their involvement not really counting as much. Of course, you can go onto the forums, and especially little faction forum rooms on the website, and interact with them, but most of that is sort of just shouting about which theater are we going to attack, and once that's decided, cool, I'm going to attack that theater, and that's it. Of course, you can sort of go through the dramatic threads about, oh, this faction's cheating, or we don't like what these guys are doing, or trying to come up with something in character, but I think that really wears off quickly on a lot of people. So that is my explanation as to why a lot of people, and including me, ditched Strikezone Wotan after a couple of weeks. It got old very quickly, it wasn't really fun anymore, and we could see that however the outcome was going to be determined, it was going to be determined probably in a rather arbitrary way that didn't have too much to do with individual effort. Now, let me get on to some of the meat of why I thought this campaign, as it stood and as it was carried out, was garbage. I really didn't like it. When you get involved and you've created your account and you're uploading your bat reps and you're trying to sort of get involved in the campaign, inevitably you're going to be spending a lot of time on this website looking at which factions appear to be in control of each of these locations. And you'll also be looking at these little pie charts down here to see, well, how well is your faction doing against the next best faction in that area, and what more could be done to secure that faction. Because you are role-playing as a member of that faction and you want your side to win. Nobody wants their side to lose. I remember when Donald Trump got elected and Obama comes out the White House, and as part of his speech is like, everyone's sad when their side loses, and that's true. I mean, obviously this campaign has nothing to do with like a competition like politics, but inevitably, if you declare a singular winner or winners of a campaign, everybody who is part of the other factions is going to feel, oh, I put all that time into it and now I look like the losers, and whenever this comes up in conversation, I was playing for the losing side, and that is something that bums people out. But that's not even my criticism. My criticism is that the best way to influence your faction's attempt to overcome a particular theater is to play as many games as possible, to win those games, and to ensure that that game, all those games that you have won, have been uploaded to that particular theater, right? So if, I don't know, if you're playing Ariadna and, you're trying to secure a theater and you're up against Toha or something like that, you want to play Ariadna for those games, you want to put your game on that theater, and you want as many people to upload as many of those bat reps as you can. But for you to individually actually accomplish that yourself, you should be trying to play against somebody who's not as good as you are, right? And this is what I want to talk about. If there's somebody in your community, in your little meta, the people that you can choose from to play, you should be going after the person who's the weakest player, a new player, somebody who's not very experienced, somebody who's not very good, and you should play as many games against that person as you can. Furthermore, you should be uploading all of the bat reps for those games to the one theater. It shouldn't be a matter of, okay, I'm going to put one win over in this theater and another one over this other one, another over this other one, because the results, the outcomes are spread out, and your faction doesn't have a chance to overcome that particular area on the map, right? So because that incentive exists, you've got people farming wins off people in their meta who they know they can beat. So let's imagine you live in a little town where there are 6 other people you could potentially play, and there's one person there who's better than you are, and that person wins 60% of the time that you play against them. And then there's 2 people, you're fairly even, it's 50-50 split, and then there's another person maybe that you win 60% against because you're a little bit better than them. Then there's somebody else who you win like 70% of the time, and then there's somebody who's just terrible and you win every single time because they make awful mistakes, and it doesn't really matter about the dice. So to help your faction in the campaign, you should be ignoring everybody else who can beat you, especially if they're involved in the campaign yourself, and just to play game after game after game, hammering away at people who aren't going to produce wins. Because if you don't win the games and you upload the reps, the loss just has no effect. The campaign doesn't really reward your faction for going out and uploading bat reps where you lose. Furthermore, if you manage to find somebody who's willing to be a punching bag, who is just cool, they just want to show up and play, they want to see the models, they want to roll some dice, and they don't mind about winning or losing, so they're okay with you just thrashing them over and over again, and there'll be people like that. You also need that person to agree to allow the bat reps to be uploaded to that same theater every single time as well, don't you? So you need somebody who sucks, and you need somebody who is submissive to you in that regard in terms of the campaign. Now, one optimal way to do that is to play against somebody who's not involved in the campaign. So if you put all of your bat reps against this one person who isn't even bothering with the campaign, they're not going to care whether you upload it in the same theater of war every time, right? But if they are participating in the campaign, they have to really not care about their faction doing badly. I mean, if back to that example, Ariadna versus, I don't know, Toha. Let's say we've got Ariadna Steve against Mike, who plays Toha, and Mike doesn't really care about whether Toha wins or anything like that. And Steve is posting 10 bat reps at a time up against this location that Aria wants to take off Toha. It's important that Steve doesn't really care. But as soon as in that situation, Mike realizes that Steve's realizing that Mike's wanting to stand up for himself and demanding that, okay, last time we played in this theater, this time we're going to play in this theater that suits my faction, and we're going back and forward. Well, suddenly that win rate of 100% is effectively cut down to 50%. He's having to work twice as hard to take over that faction. But looking through the bat reps that do get uploaded to Strikezone Wotan and Flamestrike, of course, all the time we see commanders uploading just constant waves of these bat reps against the same person, and that always wins. And sometimes we'll see linked bat reps from those people as well. And that is a situation where I feel like that's cool. If you've got somebody who's going to lose against you all the time and upload bat reps and agree to let you choose which theater to play in, I don't really see why the rest of the online community should care as much about the outcomes of your games, because it's a bit more trivial. If you're in a situation where, coming back to that meta where there's 6 other people to play against, and that person that is capable of beating you, or those 2 people who beat you half the time, are also in the campaign, and they're agreeing to sometimes play in these theaters and sometimes other theaters, and you beat them anyway, then I'm interested in the outcome of your game. I'm a bit more interested in you actually playing on the theater where the stakes are a bit higher, and for the outcome to be determined against a player who's also getting wins off other players. If you are beating somebody who's also capable of winning, and that's been shown by them beating other players, then that seems to matter a bit more. So because the mechanics of the campaign, the way the campaign is designed, unfortunately incentivizes that kind of behavior, I couldn't really get behind it in that regard. On a related note and a related criticism, as I've pointed out and as it's cropped up during the campaign, if these 2 factions are fighting over a particular area, you know, you've got Ariadna fighting against Toha over a particular spaceship or something like that, the Ariadna players want to upload their wins at a different location, the Toha players want to upload their wins at a different location, so all of the fighting over a particular theater is being carried out in different areas, basically, in terms of wins. I might have got the explanation of that part a little bit wrong, but I think you guys already know and understand that the uploading to theaters mechanic is very, very much flawed. In this campaign, we were told that there would be other ways of determining outcomes, and after watching the outcomes video, that's cool. They gave medals to factions that uploaded a lot, or uploaded a high proportion of wins, or had the best quality bat reps and so forth. All that does, and I agree that they did that, all that does in the outcomes video is basically say, clap clap, everybody wins. So all of the factions win, that's cool, there's no winners or losers. And they had to do that, really. If they say, okay, this faction wins and these other factions lose, it just puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and they can't really have that. But at the same time, if everyone wins, nobody really wins, do they? I mean, it's just it's a relative thing. You know, when you're watching videos like the outcome video, and again, that's fine what they did. I mean, I probably would have done the same in their situation. But the problem with it that I'm pretty sure we can all see is that there is no criteria for the campaign to have not gone well. Like, can you offer a situation where you wouldn't have been happy with the outcome, rather than just saying, okay, everything went fantastically, everybody had a blast? Can you imagine running a campaign that you wouldn't have said that about, and what would that kind of campaign look like? I would be quite interested to know how that would have gone. So to recap, this was a campaign where a lot of people stopped playing. It's hard to feel like you were involved in the outcomes of theaters. Uploading bat reps became a bit of a chore. It's the kind of campaign that really incentivizes you to pick on people and to farm victories of people who are weaker than you are. And the last criticism I'll make before I move on to lighter topics is that this generated some really nasty, dialogue in the forums. There were a lot of threads where people were really having a go against each other, predictably, and attacking beasts of war as well. And I feel like these campaigns tend to be a bit of a magnet for that kind of thing. As soon as people get into a competition about something that can't really be competitive, by its very nature, there are problems. This is not like a tournament where you show up with your models and it's your merit and your actual activity and your effort that results in an outcome. This is something different to that, and I want to make that really clear. So, as promised, I now want to start offering up some of my smaller ideas and give you guys the chance to criticize me. That's only fair. If you're sitting there steaming right now, you're so angry at VaulSC for actually taking a dig at a campaign you had so much fun with, I'm sure you guys are going to be forum keyboard warriors and write your responses to me now about why you think my ideas are terrible. So let's get out with them. What are some of the things that I came up with? Well, there are 8 factions in the campaign, and unless I've done the math wrong, I think there are 28 different matchups if you exclude like friendly fire. So we're not going to include Nomad versus Nomad games, but if we talk about Nomads versus Toha, Nomads versus Pano, and Pano versus Hakaslam, and all of the possible matchups, I think there's 28. So that's not too many. On a page, you could still actually put some stats about how the matchups went. So imagine if there was a tab you could go to where it shows you, okay, for all of the bat reps that were between, I don't know, Nomads and Pano, how is that looking? Are there more wins, for Nomads, or is it more wins for Pan-Oceania? And it would break that down a bit further, giving more weight to bat reps that were between commanders that were involved in the campaign, so there would be less of an emphasis on cases where a Pano commander uploads a bat rep against a Nomad player that wasn't really involved in the campaign, that just had a name there and didn't even have an account profile with games associated with it. So there wouldn't be as much weight to that. Also, if you've got a case where, I don't know, Ariadna Steve and Toha Mike have got their bat reps uploaded, and you can see there's 20 of them, where Steve has beaten the pants off of Mike, and they're all there, the less weight would be attributed to that. So you might see a color-coded list where down the bottom in red you can see all of the less relevant reports, and at the top you can see some reports that sort of were defining for the matchup during the campaign, where Ariadna Steve finally got to play against somebody else from Hakaslam who was also kicking ass during the campaign. And we got to see the clash of the titans between somebody who's immersed in the campaign and is playing against a whole bunch of people and winning, against somebody else who's immersed in the campaign and also winning, and what was the outcome of their game. And at the top of this list you can start to see, well, who's coming out better off in that particular matchup, and maybe some narrative could be attributed to that. So I quite like that idea. I want to admit that idea doesn't serve very well people who are isolated and only have one household member to play against. And I understand that if all you have to play against is your wife or your son or your flatmate, and you can't get to anybody else to play Infinity with, and you still want to participate, then some of the stuff that I've been saying in this video have probably offended you. I don't mean to sort of pick on people who don't have the opportunity to play a lot of games, and if it just happens that you play against your flatmate and you want it to be a legitimate game, but you're better than that person, you win all those games, and you still want to upload the bat reps, and so do they, look, I'm not going to take anything away from that. I'm not going to say that's wrong. all I want to say is that for certain kinds of outcomes, I would rather care more about the outcomes of games that are a bit more immersive. Which brings me to another idea, which is within the campaign. Break up the outcomes in different ways. So you might have like one aspect of the campaign which is only about presentation. So you've got a category that you can also almost run for. Like let's say the Olympics and you're in the track and you're only trying to compete in the 200-meter sprint, and this other person is only competing in high jump or something like that, and that's what they're trying to get the medal in. So when you're uploading all of your bat reps, maybe you're ticking a checkbox or categorizing it in such a way that enters you into the race for the bat reps that have the best photos and the best video and the best presentation. And there might be another category, it's purely for role play, so you're trying to get more into the narrative and really tell a better story than everybody else in your faction or on the global map. And then of course there are the people who are just wanting to upload the results, and there's always a time and place for that, and that's cool. They can upload the results and that's great. So I think that by doing that, when you come back to this page every single time and you're coming back to the results, rather than just seeing this sea of like endless bat reps that you're starting to care less and less about, you can sort of follow these races. You can follow in this particular phase for this last week who's been pumping out the bat reps that look the best, because I want to watch, I want to look at them, I want to be dazzled. And then maybe for this same week, you can also, if you care about it, look at, okay, well, who's been writing the most interestingly narrative stuff, and what's most popular in that regard. And then of course you can come over to the page where you're looking at matchups and you're really interested in the battle for this particular spaceship, and you're really interested to see whether nomads are coming out on top of Pano in the important fights, and you can see some information about that. And at the end of the campaign, the data just gets printed and people can draw their own results, rather than saying, okay, overall, the best faction was X, because that is really going to do more harm than good, I think, in the long run. So those are a few of my ideas. If I have to, if this was me and I worked for CB, I mean, who knows? I'm probably the kind of guy who would say, well, let's not do a campaign. Let's try and come up with some other idea for something we can do to propel the community. But if I had to work with what we have here, and if I had to work within, the War Console and the kind of platform that's already there, and make some tweaks, I mean, all I can suggest is have a cap on the number of games you can post, and make your uploads of victories worth more if they're against somebody who's also immersed in the campaign. Have your defeats worth something, have there some merit to that, and incentivize people somehow to post their bat reps in the theater of the theater they're actually trying to beat, and play that particular faction. So if you're trying to take over the icicle that Hakkaslam have, and that's what you're going for, play against Hakkaslam for those bat reps, I think, is the point I was trying to make earlier. Don't, beat Ariadna, Steve, or Toha Mike 10 times and then post your wins against Ariadna onto, well, as if they were wins against Ariadna onto the icicle. So you've got to come up with some incentive for that. I think it's time now to move on to my finale for this video commentary, which is that a lot of people really genuinely had fun during the campaign because of the in-character side of it, because of the drama and the post that came up. I mean, part of my criticism of this is that people don't really care about the end outcomes as much as they do the results of these little pie graphs and the articles that come out saying that, oh, combined army have taken over a ship or something like that. And that's what drives people to upload bat reps in a certain way that sometimes is negative. But at the same time, people really had fun reading those articles and actually seeing the progression of the campaign, so hats off to that. Also, people put a lot of effort in their bat reps, and I always have to sort of give credit where credit is due to effort that's put into to real art and to real recounting and storytelling, so that was awesome. Some people just have really amazing gaming tables and painted models, and I love to see that. And finally, Corvus Belli made some really good deals with those starter sets in some cases. Some were better than others, but the fact that a lot of people bought models and probably, you know, played more games of Infinity and potentially got new people into Infinity as a result was always good. So I can never naysay that. That's one thing I can never touch, is that if the game is being promoted, and this is something which did more of bringing people into Infinity than turning people off. I mean, I doubt anybody just said, "Ah, F this, I'm just going to quit Infinity as a result of this campaign." Nobody would have done that. In which case, it worked out alright in that regard. But in terms of this being a success in the way the competition was run, no. No, it really was not a good campaign as far as that was concerned. Anyway, guys, that's about all I had to say about Strikezone Wotan. Hopefully, next year there either is no campaign or they really drastically change how it works. We'll see you then.